Hey guys, it's Rachel with Be Healed Dog Training, and I'm just going to take a few minutes here to show you what our initial session looks like on the remote collar for Athena here. Athena is 4 months old, and yes, she's being trained on an e-collar. A lot of people freak out about puppies being trained on e-collars, and the only reason I can think of why is because they have the wrong ideas about e-collars. So I want to show you what this first session looks like. She's scratching at it a little bit. It's not even being used right now. Part of that is because the box is there and she feels it and she's kind of like, what is this collar thing on my neck? And the other part of it is when she first felt the stem, that's how she responded. And it was actually very minor. I had to hold the button down for several seconds to be sure that she was feeling it. And the only indication she gave me is she quietly started scratching a little bit. There was no fear, there was no jumping around, there was no startle factor. It was just this calm, what is this feeling on my neck? And that's why I want to show you what it looks like when we're training a dog. Again, first session, I've only done a few exercises doing place with this before I thought, hey, I need to record this. So, never had an e-collar before. Again, I use Mini Educator by e-collar Technologies is what this collar is. I recommend this collar for a lot of people. It works as a muscle stimulator. I've got lots of videos that talk about it, and that's not really the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is just to show you what it looks like when you've got not only a brand new dog, but a puppy. And I think one of the big reasons that people balk at this idea is they think that we're using fear and intimidation and that remote collars should be a last resort. And I'm going to have a whole coffee talk that I do on that. I don't see why a remote collar should not be the first resort. This is an incredibly effective tool, and it provides very clear communication for the dog. So what I'm doing with her is I'm conditioning her to the collar. We're working at her working level, which is the lowest level that she's showing signs that she's feeling the collar. For her right now, that's a 7. That is out of 100. There are 100 levels on this. For a frame of reference, I can't feel the collar until it's at an 8 to a 12. Typically, it's got to be at about 10 or 11 before I can even feel it. So what she's working on is a level that is imperceptible to me. Okay, so the collar gives a sensation that's strange to her, so you'll see her probably scratch at it. And usually I'll interrupt that with my foot or use some leash guidance to guide her back over to me or get her back on target. But there's no fear, there's no concern besides mild interest in it. So what I'm doing is I'm sending her to place. As soon as I give her the place command, which she is familiar with the place command, she knows this really well. We actually usually do this without her even having the leash on, or if anything, she drags it. I'm starting off with a little bit of leash guidance just because now that we're adding this to the equation, it changes things a little bit and she might get confused at, okay, well now I'm not sure what to do because I had this sensation on my neck. So I'm going to start by taking a few steps back on where she is on the place command, guide her a few times, and then start sending her. And what I'm doing is as soon as I give her the place command, I'm holding the button down continuously, and as soon as she gets on place with all 4 feet, I'm letting go. And so we're using pressure on, pressure off. She feels pressure when she's going to place or when the place command has been given. She feels the pressure go away when she completes the command, which is all 4 feet being on place. If she steps off of place before I've released her, I'll just push the button again and tell her no and put her back on. Essentially, that's a correction, but she's not being punished. This is not at a high corrective level. This is just at an informational level. So even when I say no, it's not meant to punish her at this point because she's still learning it. It's just meant to give her information. No, that's not correct. She'll be guided back. The remote collar will be used to help clarify that. The whining that you hear is her brother downstairs. They're still working on when they're separated. There's a little bit of whining that happens, so that's not her. It's her brother downstairs. But anyway, just going to do this for a couple minutes and show you what it looks like because it's not what a lot of people have in mind when they think about remote collars. We're also using food. This is her daily kibble here. Again, balance trainers and trainers who use remote collars get this reputation for some reason of being punishment only based. Just because we do use punishment as an equation in our training, nothing that we're doing in this session is going to involve punishment, okay? This is all positive reinforcement training. The remote collar is not a punisher. The remote collar is just providing more information to the dog to help clarify what it is that I'm telling her. So when she does the place command properly, she'll get rewarded with her food. We did start by teaching the place command on leash before using a remote. She's been here for a few days now. So I like to initially start things on leash, let the dog start to get a feel for the command, and then we're layering this over top of it. Athena, place. So again, I'm holding the button down as soon as I give the command, and I'm releasing it as soon as she gets on the place bed. Good. We're also working on building up duration with her on place, which is why I'm kind of waiting before I release her. And again, if she steps off early, it'll be no. The remote will immediately be activated as soon as she starts to step off, and it'll be immediately stopped as soon as she's on place again. Break. Break. Good. She's a little distracted because there's a cat around the corner. Athena, come. Yes, good girl. Good job. Athena, place. You can see there, she showed a little sign of her feeling the collar there. And again, it's more kind of a, what is this? Yes, good girl. You might see her scratch it. She looked like she was about to scratch at her neck there. And again, if she does that, I'm just going to interrupt it. Good. Break. Good girl. Good job. Place. Yes. Good. See, a little bit of scratching there. Not a big deal. Nope. Nope. Break. Good girl. Sit. Yes. And again, I'm wanting to show you this because I want you to see this puppy is not afraid. She's not shut down. She's not being trained with intimidation and fear. She's just being trained with a pressure source, which a leash, by the way, is also a pressure source. Pressure source? Pressure source. Spatial pressure is a pressure source. That's hard to say. Source of pressure. We'll go with that. Me using my body to put spatial pressure on her is a source of pressure. So this is just another source of pressure for the dog. And there's no fear or intimidation associated with this. Now, eventually, when she very much knows the command, knows what is expected of her, I cannot talk today. When she understands the collar and has been conditioned to it, these collars can be used, and in my training will be used, to correct behaviors for known commands. For example, when she knows place really well and she's conditioned to the collar, she'll receive a brief correction for breaking place ahead of time or for not going to place when she's been told. Yes, even as a puppy, they can be held accountable. Might approach it just a little bit different with puppies than adult dogs. Obviously, there's other variables to consider with that. But even when these are used for a correction for a dog that understands a known command and you're correcting for non-compliance, it's all very neutral, it's all very brief, and you're not training with fear. You're just training with matter-of-fact consequence. But again, that's not what this is about. That's for another post. I have other posts that talk about that. This is just showing you this is how we start. We are teaching the dog what the collar means. And also to further play off of when people try to say that if you train with remote collars, you're using fear. We actually teach the dog specifically not to be afraid of the collar. Because if she's afraid of this, that's going to be one of the least effective training methods I can think of. Let's take something that the dog is very afraid of, and let's apply that every single time we want the dog to do something. That doesn't make sense. So if the dog is fearful of the collar, because some dogs are fearful of these when they first feel it, and it's not out of pain. Some dogs just respond that way because they're unsure of the sensation, and so they become fearful. We work them through that, and we teach them that the collar is nothing to be afraid of. So we actually are doing the opposite. We're teaching not to be afraid of the collar, and just to understand that they're in control of when the collar's on, when it's off, what it means, when the stem is there, that that's actually sending them some kind of signal. It's a communication device. Again, place. Yes. Now, what you'll notice here, she was reacting a little bit more. That is very typical, especially after you first introduce the collar. The more you work on it, typically your levels will drop. So the dog gets more tuned into the collar, and they'll start reacting to it a little more, and at that point you can lower your levels. So she's been at a 7. I'm going to turn it down to a 6 because I don't want her overreacting to it. I want the lowest level that she feels. And the more that she feels it and is aware that it's there, the more that she's kind of tuned in for it, listening for it, feeling for it. And so then I can turn it down even more. So the goal is to have this as low as you can possibly train on. It's basically training your dog by using a whisper. So I like to train dogs with soft, subtle commands, as subtle as I can give them, so that that dog is tuned in and listening for it. And you can also do that with the remote collar. Right. Good girl. So we've got this level a little bit lower. I'm actually going to turn it down to a 5 here. Here we go. Athena, place. Place. So that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Yes. Where now that I'm adding the remote collar, she was a little bit distracted by the collar and not going to place. That's why you start off with a leash. Even though typically I can send her from across the room back and forth, no problem. So if you're working on this at home, doesn't matter if it's a puppy or a dog, if they're new to the remote collar, make sure you have a leash on them. You can keep it loose because you're not trying to pull them over there. You just have it there in case you need that little bit of guidance to help the dog complete it. Athena, place. Yes. Good. Okay. So that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. First session with a puppy, remote collar training, and it's fine. The puppy is completely fine. The most concern she showed was like this mild interest in what is this sensation on my neck. It's not a big scary thing. It's not anything that's overly concerning. All this is a really effective communication device. And so this is going to be applied to all her obedience training. She's going to learn the collar on all of the commands. And this is session 1. Prior to me starting recording, I think I'd used it for about 3 minutes maybe. So you're seeing this brand new, very fresh with her. We are ending this session on a 4 out of 100 levels. 4. I definitely can't feel that ever. I've never been able to feel it that low. So we're talking really, really low level stuff. Don't be afraid to use e-collars on your dogs, your puppies. It's awesome. You're going to be able to train your dog very, very effectively with these.